scheduling.
All right.
It's the old photography people always give it. We're busier than ever. I don't believe it, Janice. But that's what they all say.
Doctor's appointments.
No. I say,
That's my parents.
I tell people, don't retire because when they find out you're retired, you help them.
Yeah.
Do that. I hate to tell you how many times I drove yesterday.
Yeah, yeah.
I went to Cannon to drop off. I went to Cannon to pick up. I went to pick up his friend, take him to the movies, and then picked him up at the movies.
Yeah. Perfect.
4 trips to town.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. As you might have suspected, there are plenty of people out in the cafeteria still waiting to register to come in, and we're going to hold off for a little while, so I appreciate your patience until we can get started. I have one other thing. For those of you who have volunteered to assist us in the counting of the votes, could you please come up behind the podium at this point? Thank you.
No. I'm not. I got it. It's been a while since I've been there.
Put it this way. I begged that I could read it. Chino's autobiography. It's fascinating. It's a quick
It's going to be a long time before those take.
By the way, someone sits next to me. I was. So we proposed, the reason why we proposed you guys are retiring. Okay, I ended up initially just being promised to roll with it. Skip Jack came out there. Who's happened to be in town? Yeah, really. Bring a nice blanket and
So you got like agree with a couple paragraphs. Slip in the.
it's only about a dozen people combined. That's it.
Good luck.
I'm sure that
Did you say you need another? No, I think we're good. I got 2 more.
really can't count as
Yeah. Where did we have? What section you in? 4th section up here. Right where she is. No, really. Just put them all in pockets. All right, I guess we're ready. This place holds 2,000. Yeah.
Might be 2,000 kids, not necessarily adults. If they're squeezed in tight. All right, I'm going to kick this off, everybody.
Ready?
Showtime?
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I understand we've got pretty much everybody who wants to register to come in has been given a pass and a voting ticket. So this is an amazing, amazing site. We've held town meetings with 2 or 3 people. I've never seen a town meeting of this size. So may I congratulate all of you and thank you all for participating in the process. All right. In the absence of the clerk, I will read the call of the meeting. Notice is hereby given the town of Guilford will hold a special town meeting on Wednesday, February 26, 2025 at 7 p.m. at the Guilford High School, 605 New England Road, Guilford, Connecticut, 06437, to consider and act on the following. To consider and act upon recommendation of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance that the town of Guilford purchase 505 Whitfield Street, identified on Assessor's Map 29, Lot 107, consisting of 1.9 acres for the sum of $3 million, if purchased on or before April 15th, 2025, or $3.1 million if purchased thereafter. Dated at Guilford, Connecticut, this 13th day of February 2025. A moderator is called for. I nominate Fred Trotta to be the nominator. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you for the second. Let me try your minds. Let's try a voice vote this time on the moderator. All in favor of Fred Trotta as the moderator signify by saying aye. Aye. Those in opposition? That's unusual. Fred, they love you. Fred, they love you. You're on.
My mother would be so proud. Thank you, everyone. You're all so nice. We can all go home now. Well, maybe not. I'd like to appoint a clerk for the meeting, and I'd like to appoint Karen Quersha as the clerk. So, with that in mind, just a brief outline of what we're going to do here today. There's a lot of people, and we want everybody to have a chance to speak. So we're going to go in order. We're going to have a presentation by... No? My bedtime is at 9:15. That's already out the window. We're going to have a presentation by Matt Hoey regarding the proposed purchase. Lou Federici will come up and speak to us. Then Gary McElhaney from the Land Acquisition Committee. John Tarudis as Economic Development Coordinator. Janice Plasiak, Town Engineer, will speak to us. Then there comes a time for you folks. There'll be an opportunity for questions regarding the acquisition, and then a period for comments on the acquisition. Both of those for each speaker is going to be 2 minutes. And I'd ask if it sounds like something has already been asked or said that represents what you'd like to say, if you could keep it brief or maybe just rely on your townspeople who have spoken before you, that's probably a good idea. Then we're going to call and have a vote on the question. So without any further ado, I'd like to call Matt Hoey back to the lectern.
Thank you, Fred. Some of this may sound a little bit familiar with some of the things you may have read that we've distributed in various media and in press releases. The town leadership acknowledges that there are many questions related to this proposal, particularly what we plan to do with the property. While we cannot provide definitive answers to some of the questions or offer definitive plans for what it will eventually look like and what amenities will be available for the community, we can answer the most important question of why are we considering and recommending this purchase. To us, the answer is pretty simple. This is a rare opportunity to create a unique public space, one that has the potential to create much needed public coastal access for Guilford residents for years, if not generations to come, and possibly create a pathway or connectivity to Jacobs Beach over a piece of property that we own between them. We are buying a right to determine the use of this property, to protect and enhance a valuable resource. If we don't seize this opportunity, we'll have no say in it forever. Guilford has earned silver certification and climate leader designation from Sustainable Connecticut, which encourages municipalities to prepare for the impacts of climate change. This administration and past ones have demonstrated leadership in this area, and leaders sometimes need to be bold. We have prepared ourselves for opportunities like this with funding mechanisms, which I will address later. This proposed acquisition comes to you for a vote as required by town charter. It has a unanimous recommendation of the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, both of which authorize the execution of a non-binding letter of intent to purchase the property. Additionally, the Land Acquisition Commission and the Marina Commission have voted in favor of this purchase. The Planning and Zoning Commission has found this purchase is in alignment with the stated goals of the town's plan of conservation and development. Both the Guilford Rotary and the Guilford Preservation Alliance are also in support of this initiative. The town has received a letter of support for the purchase of this property from Senator Christine Cohen and Representative Maura Reda, along with a commitment to assist in pursuing state and federal funding opportunities. As mentioned previously, we have prepared ourselves for this moment. In 2022, voters approved at referendum a $10 million bond authorization for land acquisition. This followed a $5 million authorization approved over 20 years ago and was used judiciously, the last of it used only a couple of years ago. Of that $10 million, 7.5 is to be used for open space properties and 2.5 can be used for general municipal purposes. The purpose of creating this opportunity, this authorization, was to allow us to act quickly to avoid losing an outstanding property like 505 Whitfield without the delay of holding a townwide referendum vote that would otherwise be required to authorize the issuance of bonds. We also have nearly $1 million in our land acquisition fund, which can be used for this purchase. We intend to aggressively pursue federal and state funding for this project. Town staff has already been engaged with FEMA and the state of Connecticut, DEMIS, and DEEP Resources, and we have submitted a series of questions related to the funding opportunities from both agencies and any conditions related to the acceptance and use of such funding. It is our understanding that the Federal Hazard Mitigation Assistance funding through FEMA can cover up to 100% of acquisition costs, as well as 100% of demolition of any structures on the target property. Earlier this week, we received some favorable input from FEMA funding that Town Engineer Janice Plasiak will share in a few moments. We have already had conversations with legislative leadership about state of Connecticut bonding opportunities for either acquisition or enhancements to this and adjoining properties. People have rightfully asked, how much is this going to cost homeowners, taxpayers? It's a legitimate question. If we were to borrow $3 million at current bond rates and retire it over 30 years, the cost would be somewhere between $165,000 and $180,000 a year. There are over 10,000 properties that are taxed annually. If you do the math, that comes out to $16.50 to $18 a year, or no more than $1.50 per month. Lining up these resources and understanding the impacts may take some time, and that helped determine how we structured our letter of intent, which outlines a series of timelines related to closing on the property. The movement on this acquisition had an accelerated timeline, particularly for a government entity. We are not used to the compressed timelines of the private sector. After the closure of the restaurant, John Trudis, our Economic Development Coordinator, and Gary McKelney, Vice Chair of the Land Acquisition Committee, reached out to the property owner to understand what his plans were. At a meeting in mid-December, we learned that the property was indeed up for sale and that there was a letter of intent in place with a potential buyer or developer. At an emergency meeting of the Board of Selectmen, we authorized Gary and John to negotiate a letter of intent. The letter of intent, signed by both the town and the property owner, calls for a purchase price that is lower than the price stipulated in the alternative letter of intent. Now we find ourselves at a point where we will collectively make the decision. Tonight, you will have an opportunity to ask questions, air your concerns, share your thoughts, and most importantly, vote on the future of this property. Thank you.
Now we'll call upon Lou Federici for a presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. As a board, I'm comfortable saying we've carefully deliberated this purchase. The opportunity to purchase a parcel of property adjacent to an existing town resource, such as the harbor, is rare. Access to the sound is rare and precious to many. The challenges to a restaurant being able to continue at that location are considerable. The risk of residential development on the waterfront would be irresistible to a developer. We have an obligation to accept, and we welcome, public input and contrary opinions. Public input informs immediate decisions and candidly is weighed in future deliberations as well. I strive to approach meetings like this not to change anyone's mind or opinion. After all, this is your chance to be heard. I can tell you that we are always aware of the responsibility of spending taxpayers' money. In this case, that responsibility is balanced against a unique opportunity to benefit all citizens of the town, now and in the future. Our town charter sums this up perfectly. Bear with me as I read it directly. In the spirit of the covenant of 1639, in which the founders of Guilford joined themselves into one community, and pledged their individual abilities to the service of their common needs, this charter establishes a town government that enables each generation's needs to be identified and met. Among the needs requiring commitment are preservation and protection of forests, farms, and waters, orderly growth to benefit the town economically while maintaining its traditional character. Also, comments on health, safety, and education, and it concludes, this charter strives to ensure these needs are met with fiscal responsibility and the informed participation of its citizenry. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Lou. Next, from Land Acquisition, I'll call Gary McElhenney to the podium.
You get the name right this time. Good evening. Let me first just point out some of the comments that I've heard is that we have to understand that it's very challenging to have a restaurant at the marina. There have been multiple floods. I think some of you have seen the pictures on the way in, and we know that there's been repetitive FEMA claims with the restaurants there. And the last two restaurateurs in that area threw up their hands and walked away. This property has long been a target of the Plan of Conservation and Development, which has charged the town with increasing coastal access. The Land Acquisition Commission has targeted this property over decades as a realistic way of achieving greater access to the water, and it came to us as an opportunity because of the closing of the restaurant and a conversation with the current owner with the crisis that came across with the flood and the closing. We had been talking to him before. I would point out that when I was a selectman, we had a conversation at a price substantially higher than this. Jim, I hope you don't mind me saying that, but we talked at that time and we passed at that time because the price was higher. There was a restaurant on it and the town really didn't want to own a property and run a restaurant, so we passed at that time. But the fact that the property is vacant, is available, is a unique opportunity to preserve the coastline and access to the water for the town. While the price seems high to some, I'm sure, as Matt pointed out, the price per each individual taxpayer is quite small. We were in a competitive situation. There was another seller who was or another buyer potentially. The seller was willing to make some concessions to us in order for the town to buy it. And there's a unique situation that because of the repetitive FEMA claims, there is FEMA money available. And for those of you that have seen me up here before talking about getting grants, the East River Preserve would be a situation where we went for the full funding of the full cost. We said there might be grants, but we didn't promise it. We did get grants. And this is a situation where we know that theoretically there are grants that are possible up to the full purchase price and the full demolition and reconstruction price. Don't promise it, but we know that they're there. The town, over the last 2 decades, has become very skilled at writing grants. We've received over $4 million, $4.2 million to be exact, in grants from state and federal sources back on properties that we have purchased, with us putting the money up front, but knowing that we can get the grants. The last property that we purchased We got a grant from this,
Sorry to interrupt, there's a request for you to just speak into the mic.
oh, I'm sorry.
Trouble hearing you back here.
I've got to move it up. Yeah, first time. The last grant that we got, we received 58% of our purchase price back from the. Does this work better? Yes, it does. Thank you, sorry. I didn't ask to be this tall, I just happened to be. The point being that we're pretty good at writing grants, we know how to do it, we know where to find them, and it's possible that we could recover the full purchase price, but it's very realistic that we're going to get a significant portion of the purchase price back. One of the questions that has come up repeatedly is, what are we going to do with the property? Unfortunately, while we have some ideas and they'll be talked about later, it's difficult to plan until we know what grants we get and what the conditions are of the grants, because each grant has certain conditions that have to be complied with, so that at this point it is difficult to do detailed planning, but that will be covered by one of the other speakers later.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Gary. I'll call now on John Tarutis, who's been hiding this microphone in front of him.
Not for any good reason. Welcome all. Thank you for showing tonight. I just had this really weird thing happen to me tonight. My voting ticket has the exact number I had at the last meeting that we had a call because we didn't have room. So I don't know what that means, if it's a sign of luck or I should play the number, but it is what it is. So again, thank you for showing. This is your meeting, your call. I'm going to be very brief because you've heard a lot of the salient points already. But I just want to call to everybody's attention that in our marina waterfront, we currently, at this moment in time, have 3 of the waterfront properties up for sale. They're on the market. I don't know about you, but I think that's a pretty fragile state for the town to be in. These properties get developed, our waterfront disappears, our access disappears, and our opportunity disappears. So tonight's vote, to me, is not about a restaurant. It's not about bonds. It's about access. It's about what Guilford looks like. It's about what makes Guilford attractive. It's about opportunities for the future, for our kids, for our grandkids. It's about attraction for Guilford to bring visitors and customers and transient boaters to our marina. With this securing the property, we then have the opportunity of creating new alternatives for food, gathering space, music, possibly the marina, kayaks, water access, access to Jacobs. But without the property, we don't have the opportunity. So again, I'd like to thank you for coming tonight. God bless.
Thank you, John. Our final presentation is from Janice Plasiak, Town Engineer, Town of Guilford.
Good evening, everyone. I'm the town engineer, Janice Plasiak, but I'm also the floodplain manager for the town. As you may have seen coming into the building, we have a photo that was taken in December of 2022. I happened to snap that photo. It was just before Christmas when we didn't have a named storm coming in, but we obviously had significant flooding. We also have a photo from the archives from October 2018 showing very similar situation at that property. It's a high-risk flood property. It's subject to frequent flooding with very high flood insurance claims over the years. And it makes the property eligible for flood mitigation assistance SWIFT current grants. I'm currently working with Connecticut Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security and at the state level and FEMA at the federal level. to better understand the grant eligibility for the property and the limitations on use of the site if the grant is used for purchase of the property or part of the property. We have confirmation that the grant would pay for acquisition costs, demolition, and improvements such as a pavilion, restrooms, and landscaping. The limits on the grant are that you cannot have an inhabited building or commercial building on the property if we were to pursue the grant, which we intend to do. We have developed in the engineering department a concept plan of what that could look like. It's nothing set in stone. It's just we wanted to give some vision to people of what the potential is, given the fact that this particular grant can cover these, the acquisition and these improvements. I do want to point out that if there's any new private development on the site, it would likely be multi-story and elevated with the first floor about 8 feet above the existing ground level. Parking or storage would be allowed at grade and below the occupied space per floodplain management ordinance and the building codes. So we have a choice to make. Do we want this to be a public space that the town can use at our harbor and our marina? Or do we want to see private development, which would likely be of a scale much different than what's out there now? Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Now, for the folks here, we'll have questions about the project. If we could limit those to 2 minutes per question, that'll be helpful. There is a microphone up at that podium if you wish to come up to that. That's probably the best way to do it. If you could just announce your name and your address, please, for the record. Do we have any questions regarding the property or the project? Going once. Going twice. Yeah.
Wait a second, we got somebody coming up.
Use the mic.
The mic, it's right here. People.
Robert Dudley, Mirror Lane, Guilford. My question to the town is, if they want this piece of property, has anybody looked at eminent domain, seeing as how the town owns 3 sides of the property as it is anyhow, Dock Lane, which is a town road beside the building? Just a question, that's all.
They'll have to pay for it.
Gary, you're too tall. You got a step stool here? The answer to that question is no. We have not considered eminent domain at this point. That is a rather involved and complicated process, which could take up to years. There are examples of that happened around the state. I think there's one in Groton that was lasted for like 3 years. But you will still have to pay market rate. The court will give the owner market rate for the property.
I've been asked by our good folks from CCTV to please use the podium to the extent that you can. That way you'll get picked up on the stream. So your name and address, please. That microphone should be on, I think.
My name is Lena Pavel. I live at Church Street, and I've been a resident of Guilford for over 50 years. My question to the commission is, approximately how many feet of coastal area is anticipated in this purchase and plan?
Janice might have that.
And this really is a two-part question, because what I'm aiming to find out is how much of that footage is available for marina docking development. In other words, instead of having beach, serene pasture, we have boat docks.
Without a calculator and adding up every bit of it, we have probably well over 600 feet of coastal frontage of the property. Part of that is included on the Lobster Pound property, which has the dockage. It's not shown on this plan, but I'm not exactly clear on the exact length of that. That is development that was done by the Lobster Pound owner, and that is something that is subject to negotiations as to how it will be used.
So, as far as development of boat docks, that's just up to the Lobster Pound?
No, it's not to the Lobster Pound. We'll own it, but those are negotiations
Because
that we would
my
still have to have.
My concern is that with the big yacht club there, or sailing club, whatever that building is, there's going to be a lot of pressure for boat docks, and if we do boat docks instead of beach, a lot of gasoline in the waters, and it becomes
There's really no beach frontage on this property. It's most,
pasture, whatever, you know, I'm
there's a lot of
envisioning a park
tidal
type
wetlands.
property.
I'm
What?
sorry. There's a lot of tidal wetlands that are part of the property as well. There's some small upland area
Yeah.
where the development is, and then there's the dockage associated with Lobster Pound.
So, could you estimate how much is available for the boating docks?
Yeah, we don't have a plan for the dockage that's existing for the Lobster Pound. I believe it's still under the control of the Lobster Pound.
Okay.
And that's to be negotiated with the Lobster Pound owner.
All right, thank you very much.
John, take this.
Yeah, so I could just comment. Thank you. Thank you for the questions. Those are good questions. I could just comment a little bit about, the future plans for the property are still up in the air. We have a lot of concepts and hopefully, things we can develop in the future. And part of that is the impact on the marina. And one thing I forgot to mention in my thoughts and comments was if the property were developed for residential use and there's either condos or rental units there, does that not put that development in direct conflict with the commercial boats that are in our marina currently, in conflict with our marina itself, in conflict with the Lobster Pound dockage as well, in the Lobster Pound itself? So I should have mentioned that too. I forgot that. So again, thank you for that question.
Thank you. Next, please. Name and address, Mr. Walwer.
Greg Walwer, 10 Stonewall Lane, thank you. I think I know the answer to this question, but I think it's important that everybody here understands the possible ramifications of a private sale. And that is, how many stories and feet could a private residential development be?
So the question that you, Jen? Yeah, let Ann take that. Oh, sorry.
Good evening. Ann Harchin, I'm your town planner. Use this one. Yes, sorry. I'm Ann Harchin, I'm your town planner. Without a specific development proposal, it is hard to evaluate at this point. I will say that the property is zoned marine commercial. Most of the uses in that zone are related to commercial activity, related to waterfront properties. So fishing activities, boating activities, things like that. There is a carve out in that zone for residential use up to 6. There are multiple layers of permitting process that would have to be achieved to put residential on that property, and it's not an insignificant amount of hurdles. There's a number of overlay zones in the area, so without a specific proposal, I'm loath to address that. But theoretically, you could probably get, with the required elevation from FEMA, you could probably have 3 to 4 stories.
I heard 6 stories in theory. Is that not attainable? I know some pretty savvy developers.
It's impossible to tell without an actual proposal before us, but my calculations That would be excessive without variances.
I think 4 would be too, but thank you.
Sir, please name and address.
Yes, my name is George Spencer, 872 Mill Plains Road. My question has to deal with, one, how many people are expected to be using this property on a daily basis? Two, where are they going to park? And finally, the question is, has an environmental impact statement been, or any studies been done on possible contaminations on the site, considering at one point there was, I believe, approximately 1,000-gallon fuel tank on the property that serviced the boats that docked there.
We did research the property in terms of storage tanks for fuel. We found that there was one permit that was taken out. It was partially buried tank that we believe is no longer there. We have no reason to believe that there's any other tanks on the property. We had a recent issue with contamination in the roadway due to road construction, but that came from a property on the other side of the road.
So you don't know whether or not there's been any tests done on the property as far as the contamination that may exist from leaking tanks prior to?
We have not done any phase 1 or phase 2 studies of the property, but we have no reason to believe that there's any tanks that remain on the property based on our records.
The other questions I had was, how many people do you expect to be using this on a daily basis, and where are they going to park?
We really don't have an estimate of how many people, but I would suggest that on a nice summer, spring, or fall day, you drive down to the marina and take a look at how many people are just sitting in their cars looking out at the out Long Island Sound. Pretty much every parking spot along that breakway is usually full. There will, the initial rendering that is up here, I think had 8 to 10 or 12 parking spaces, but that is so preliminary, we were loath to actually put that out there. But parking would be available on the property, not to the extent that it is today, but there's also parking down at the marina.
Thank you, sir. Next. And name and address, please.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing my questions. To Anthony, TJ Barber, I live at 36 Hot Meadow Circle here in Guilford. And the questions that came to mind to me tonight is the conversations were going on quite a few occasions you guys mentioned FEMA. And when I say this, I have some concerns around how much influence FEMA would have on what we want to do here in town. And based on the current administration and the position that they take on FEMA, which means that could possibly disappear or be taken away from part of your conversation as far as funding goes and reciprocity on the part of monies for the town of Guilford.
Thank you, sir. Janice?
So we have been waiting for answers to a number of questions from Demis, who we're waiting on FEMA. We haven't gotten all those answers yet for obvious, seems like, reasons going on in the FEMA headquarters. But we did hear back from Demis earlier this week that the funding that we're intending to apply for, which is the Swift Current FMA grant, is $20 million for the state of Connecticut. The deadline is May 5th to apply. They feel this is a very good candidate for funding, and they believe that funding is going to remain in place. It's been already allocated to the state of Connecticut. I can't obviously make any of those guarantees because we don't know what's going to happen. There's other possible funding sources we would search out, but I think it's important that people realize that we do believe that this is a good fit for this funding source as long as it remains in place. They also said that the interest of this funding source right now, there seems to be adequate funding to cover all, including our project for this Swift Current FEMA grant.
So even without FEMA, you guys feel you have enough current funding to move into place?
Well, as
to
you
do
know,
this?
we have the bond authorization as well that we can use, as well as the fund balance that's in the open space fund to actually make the purchase without any assistance. But obviously, we're going to do what we can to offset the taxpayers' cost for this purchase if it's approved.
Great. Thank you for that erudite explanation. I appreciate it.
Sir, please, name and address.
Hello, Stu Weinzimmer, 180 Highlands Drive, Guilford. Thank you for holding this meeting tonight. This is a sort of a follow-up, assuming that we have FEMA in the near future. And I know the grants are going to be somewhat vague at this point, but is there a potential to leverage some of the money from some of these FEMA grants to mitigate flood, problems and other issues, outside the physical limitations of the property itself? So that can that be money be leveraged outside to help the town?
Just stay. She's going to give her the microphone. Just stay there.
So this particular grant source is for specific property mitigation. So mitigation meaning to alleviate the flooding potentials into the future that have occurred in the past. The other funding sources through FEMA, which are typically your hazard mitigation grants for infrastructure improvements. That's a different funding source. And in that conversation, that one is no longer being funded. So we don't have any identified need for this particular property for that funding anyhow. This is more for an acquisition and mitigation project. Unfortunately, those other funding sources have dried up currently.
No pun intended.
Very good.
Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Jeff Evans, 115 Seaside Avenue, Guilford, Connecticut. I live right across the street from Jacobs Beach, right down the street, and right down the street from the marina. My concern, is more of a comment, is that if the town does not do something, that a private investor, whoever it may be, is going to buy that property, and no doubt, condos are going to go there. Then I'm not sure what impact that would have on the lobster pound then, too, also. But we already have condos on Whitfield Street that are not even utilized at this point. So I'm a little concerned about that. I'd rather see it go to the town for people to have access to the water. I don't own the water. I don't believe any of us own water. So let people enjoy it.
Thank you, sir, for that.
That's right.
Thank
That's
you.
what I feel.
Do you have a question for any of the folks up here? Comments are next.
Oh,
But
okay.
you're the first commenter, so congratulations. No
I
question.
jumped the gun a little bit.
Any other questions, please? I'm going to let you police who goes next. Yes.
I have a question. Sheila Walston, North Street, in Guilford. I have a question. We're all from this town. How many of our children that graduate from this high school can come back and live in this town? Okay, now I have a comment. I don't think it's a good idea. The money's way too much money. We have enough parks. We have enough water that we can go sit at. And you're bonding and you're taxing us, the people that are the backbone of this town. You're taxing us and bonding us to death.
Thank you, Ms. Walston. Thank you. If we could just try to have questions first and then comments. It's okay, don't you worry. Yep, thank you. For a question, please, your name and address.
Yeah, Vickiana and Plains Road. I'm commenting, I'm definitely not commenting, I have a question, but kind of in the line of that in terms of
Put the microphone.
oh, sorry, I'm sorry. I don't have a comment, it's a question, but I wanted to understand, I guess, the biggest thing is because I worry too, like the last lady, about the economic impact on long-term residents and even new residents, just in terms of tax costs. So one of the things that was mentioned is this idea that it would only cost like $16 to $18 a year tax burden. Is that with or without grants?
Thank you. Mr. Hoy?
That's without.
That was the estimate if we were to bond $3 million for the project.
With the bond?
With the bonds.
And then I guess my question is.
And that's without grants.
That's without
That's
grants.
all bonding money, Guilford, faith, and credit.
And I guess my other question is, we're asking the town to vote on faith that we might not have, like, that's good numbers, but some people are up to the tip with what they're able to spend, so I want to be, not everybody's a fluent in Guilford. And so I guess when we met, we mentioned that we minimize the economic impact on people. So I guess I asked the town why, there's a lot of reason why we would ask the town to vote on something before we would explore the actual grants. Is there a reason? There's a reason why we do that?
Yes, there is. And the answer is the charter requires approval at town meeting for the purchase. We can't start to negotiate the sales and purchase agreement until we have it from you. We cannot apply for the FEMA funds until we have the approval from the town. So that's why this process, which is clearly defined in the charter, has to happen.
And is there a reason why you can't apply for grants before you get approval from the town to purchase it? Because that would be.
No.
Okay.
FEMA says no.
Okay.
We have to own the property.
And there's no way to ask for a contingency, to ask people to vote contingent on those grants?
I'll leave that to the charter, the parliamentarian, but I don't think that there's a provision that allows that in the charter.
Okay, and then I just had one more question, I guess.
Sure, there's a lot of people behind you, though. So
Just one more question,
Yes.
and it has to do with finances. So $3 million is the first request we're asking for the town. That's to purchase the acquisition, but it's not to the development. If we don't get these grants, will we be asking the town to fund the development of the purchase?
I heard that it depends upon what the use is going to be. I don't mean to speak for Ms. Plasiak, but I understood that it depends upon the use, which is going to be at the property, and that will affect the cost.
So to be clear, we won't know the future impact on taxpayers
I don't think so, no.
completely. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sir, name and address, please.
Hi, Timothy Ackerman, 2089 Long Hill Road. I'd just like to know how they came up with a $3 million price tag. I looked at the last appraisal for 505 Whitfield Street. The total is $972,600. Now, if the buildings are going to be written down, that just leaves a land value of $314,400. Just curious how they came up with the $3 million price tag.
Thank you for that question. The answer is, it's the market. There was a letter of intent at a price higher than we negotiated with the seller. It is clearly market rate pricing, and that property potentially could yield something more significant in terms of tax, of an appraisal with some kind of development. So this is a market rate, as I think Gary mentioned several years ago, was negotiating with the property owner, and the price was in the mid 3.8. So the price that we have, which was a hometown discount from the owner, is less than the other letter of intent. So I think it's pretty simple. It's market rate.
All right, and that's just going to be for the land itself. That's all that's going to remain.
Just the land, for the land. Yeah, I think that's for the entire package. Whatever's there is going to be purchased, I think.
Yeah, but you're going to rip the land, the buildings down, correct?
I think it depends upon, I've heard it before that it depends upon what the grants will allow us to do. Some grants define what you're able to do, and other grants will define what Guilford can't do. That's what I heard earlier this evening.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. And for questions, please, next person for 2 minutes.
Walter
Walter Spiegelman, 29 Layton Trail. So if a developer gets this, who decides if they get a permit or not to build in a flood zone? Is it the town that decides?
Applications before the Planning and Zoning Commission and/or the Planning Department have to meet the zoning regulations that are on the books today. If a developer desires to do something that is beyond the scope of those regulations or is in conflict with what we call our bulk standards, ZBA for relief if they can demonstrate hardship. So there's a whole series of permitting processes that have to happen. If they are in compliance with our zoning ordinance, they can do, there is development that can be done on the site as of right, as long as they've met all the other permitting processes.
So that's even if it's below the floodplain right now?
They would have to meet the FEMA guidelines for development within the floodplain. Janice manages our floodplain ordinance, and those are pretty strict about what you can do in properties that are that low. They obviously, if it was a residential or other kind of commercial development, the first floor would have to be elevated significantly to be out of the flood zone.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. Name and address, please.
Lori Lawler, 11 View Place. I have a few questions. So why can't we change the zoning laws to prevent development? We're being told that we have to do this because there's somebody that wants to develop condos. I know you guys have changed zoning laws before. Why can't we do it now?
So I think what I heard in the last answer, and I could ask you to step back up again, but it depends upon the rules that are on the books.
But
You don't change
that's
them.
my point. Why can't they be changed?
You can change the zoning regulations in town. We have processes for both zoning text amendments and zoning map amendments. Anybody can make applications to the Planning and Zoning Commission to make those changes. It is a fairly extensive process to do so, but there's nothing preventing
So we
folks.
have to make that application, or can you guys do it? Because it sounds like no one in our town wants to do this.
Those applications can be made by individuals. They can be made by the town itself. I've made a number of text amendments to the new regulations myself.
So how come the town hasn't tried this?
I can't answer that question.
Why hasn't anybody sitting up here tried to change zoning laws?
It has never come to our attention that we needed to change the zoning down there because it is an appropriate use for the area. That would be considered.
The condos are? Is that what
Pardon
you're
me?
saying?
Pardon?
Building condos are appropriate?
They are allowed. I didn't say, I may have said appropriate, but they are allowed in the current zone in that area.
Right, that's my point. So why hasn't anybody tried to change the zoning laws to stop it instead of spending $3 million?
We just completed a zoning codification and rewrite, and the thought was that this should remain, that zone, that marine commercial zone, which is also covered by the Town Center South overlay zone, were in place. Changing those two things would have been a significant effort, and it never occurred to us that that was a way to stop someone from realizing the value of their property.
What is going to happen to the lobster pound?
That's a good question. Who's got that? Who's got it? That's a great question.
We are convinced that we will be able to find a way to keep the lobster pound in either exactly the same way or in a consistent way. We have met with him. We have a consensus that there is a way to keep them. There's a very peculiar lease on this property. There's a very peculiar lease on this property with a number of provisions which probably he's in violation of. Not that we want to eliminate him from the process, we want to negotiate and keep him here. We've talked to him and have assured him that we would find a way to keep the lobster pound operating on this property and probably enhance it by creating parking by creating better access.
Are there any alternatives to maybe helping the? Are there any alternatives?
You gotta wait. I don't mean to cut anybody off.
All right, I know there's a 2-minute, but if you have one last question, please, let's have it.
Okay, then I'm gonna ask, how much revenue is the town losing by closing the restaurant and putting a park there?
So the tax notes.
So the town obviously didn't close the restaurant. It was flooded a number of times.
I didn't
A
say the
private
town
developer,
closed the restaurant.
a private landowner made a decision with regard to a business they had on a private piece of property, which they're entitled to do. And in answer to your previous question, changing zoning on someone who has an existing piece of property would be met with a number of constitutional legal challenges. Somebody is certainly entitled to use the property as they bought it. And there's many stakeholders. In this case, it's a one-person stakeholder, but it's not a unilateral act that the town can impose on a landowner to just change their parcel.
That's a better answer, thank you. But
Thank
you
you.
didn't answer my question about how much revenue the town is.
I have to call time on you, I'm sorry.
Wow.
Thank
What was
you.
the question? How much revenue?
Yeah, I apologize for this.
The answer to your question is that property currently pays $18,000 in taxes, and I want to apologize for an unfortunate way that Lobster Pound was just depicted. Lobster Pound actually pays a portion of that as per the lease, and it is my intention and our intention that the Lobster Pound stays there. We're going to honor the terms of the lease, and we will make sure that the Nancy family continues to have access to that facility for as long as they want to. And right now, I believe we've got 63 years left on that lease, and it is our intention to continue to have Nancy family run the Lobster Pound as long as they want.
Sir, name and address.
Thank you. My name is Bob Hartman, Plains Road. Just haven't heard it yet tonight. Just to clarify, are there any conditions under which we can walk away from negotiations?
Yes, there are. We don't have a purchase and sales agreement in place. We have no requirement for deposit, a non-refundable deposit until I believe it's September 30th. So yes, we could. That is not our intention. That we'll be able to work favorable terms on the purchase and sales agreement, and there won't be anything there that we object to.
Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Hello. Okay, that answers the first question. It's on. My name is Kirtland Griffin. I'm at 638 West Lake Avenue. Just a little bit of information to ask the question. About a dozen years ago, the town approved unanimously in the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve the Coastal Resilience Plan. According to the Coastal Resilience Plan, that area that you're considering spending $3 million on is going to be flooded on a daily basis, according to that plan. Has that been considered by this group? It's going to be underwater according to the Coastal Resilience Plan.
It is true that we have flooding that's going to occur more frequently and we've seen that happen over the past decade or two. The plan is a plan. We still have improvements there. We have our marina, we have Jacobs Beach, and I think long-term we're going to have to look at infrastructure improvements and other ways to protect some of these assets that the town has in that area, as well as private properties, who have investments in that area. It's not an easy solution, but it's something that doesn't preclude development now. So we can't put a moratorium on anything. We haven't put a moratorium. I guess we could if we wanted to, but I don't think that's something that the town really wants to see. So in light of the fact that it's not always high tide, or we see these instances of flooding that happen frequently, but not every day, there is a use for the property in the near term.
And we also have 11 access points to the sound, plus Quanapug, currently.
Thank you, sir. Well, I see 3 people. You got to pick one. Good evening. Name and address, please.
My name is Margot Christopher. I live at 1 Franklin's Way in Guilford. My question is, I heard that there was a possibility that you would be able to connect the property to Jacob's Beach. I'd like to know if you could answer how that would be done, and hopefully what you do will be with complete environmental sustainability. I would like that answered. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'll answer the last part. Whatever we do there will be environmentally sustainable. A couple of years ago, we entered into negotiations with a property owner on Seaside Avenue who has a park adjacent to Jacob's Beach. We attempted to negotiate to purchase that. The price was not one we were willing to pay for a variety of reasons, which I won't go into here. We also started negotiations with the Rothberg family about the Harriet Beecher Stowe House, because they also own a piece that we would need to get access to, because you would go across a small sliver of land owned by the Harriet Beecher Stowe property. And then there's a town piece of property. Then there was this privately owned property, and then Jacob's Beach. So we were knee-deep in negotiations to try to acquire those properties, with the intent that we would be able to create a pathway across the sound, taking you basically from Jacob's Beach to the marina area. So that's the rationale. That was the rationale, was that eventually that would create a wonderful opportunity for folks to be able to walk from Jacob's Beach over to the marina area.
I would just like to comment that I am not a long-term resident of Guilford. I've only lived here for 2 years, and I am in full support of the town doing something, because buying here was the best thing I ever did. I feel like I live in Bedford Falls. I bought this house for my children. I am a New Yorker, born and bred. And I think that this town, you should thank your lucky stars, because when I look at the water and take a walk with my husband and look at the water glowing and sparkling from that parking lot, I feel like I've died and gone to heaven.
Thank you.
I fully support this wonderful, wonderful town. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we're happy to have you with us. Just questions for this evening, though, is all. If we can keep it to questions. Are you next? Just for questions. Do you have a question? For the comments. Coming up right next. Thank you. Mr. Manzi, a question perhaps?
Yeah, a couple of questions.
A couple of questions.
Good evening, everyone. Bart Manzi, Guilford. I own the Guilford Lobster Pound. I don't want to give you a lot of your time. I just want to give you a brief history. I went there 1992.
Questions? Question?
Yeah, I got a question for the gentleman.
Okay.
All right. Just a brief little history, then I'll give away. I went there in 1992. The restaurant was condemned. There was a little shack in the back of the building. The dock was you couldn't even walk on the dock. I took my wife down there. I said, excuse me, Jen, this is what I want to buy. She looked at me. She said, what, are you crazy? I said, no. There's a future here. I got a vision here. I spent a lot of time in Maine, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to build a dock. I wanted to build a pound. And I wanted to have a restaurant on the dock where people can come and enjoy the harbor. Like Matt said, people go up to the shore, they sit in their car, they look at the shore, and they go home. So I had a vision, and I worked with the town. I worked with every organization I had to work with to get the permitting for the dock. It took me 8 years and a lot of money. And I just heard a comment that I'm out of compliance, and I just want to know what I did wrong.
All right, good. No. That's it. I think it's a rhetorical question. I think But I think the comment too was taken out of context. If you need an answer from Gary. I
Yeah,
can have
Gary's
it.
gonna have to give me an answer because I wanna know, after 32 years, what I did wrong and why I'm out of compliance. Tonight, I'm out of compliance.
My only comment is that's an old lease created by somebody before you with some technical issues that will be
So you're looking
easily
to put me out of
solved.
business with this
That will
deal?
be
Is that what
easily,
you're trying to do?
that will be easily solved. And, you know, there are things that we
I
want to
heard
be a
you say
partner
the
with.
lobster department's gonna make change. Did you ask me what kind of changes I'm gonna make? I don't plan
No.
on making any change.
No.
Any changes I make is gonna be for the benefit of the people of the town.
Bart, I'm gonna apologize once again for the unfortunate use of words and misstatement. We will look at that contract, that lease, and make sure we're both sides in compliance, and we stand up and do what we're supposed to do for the terms of that lease. So, again, my apologies, and we intend to be partners with you when we move forward with this, if we get the chance to do so.
Thank you. And just to let everybody know, I am in favor of this proposal, so I hope you guys, support it. Not only are you supporting it, thank you.
Thank you, Bart.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the panel? Are there questions? Yes, sir. Name and address, please. Good evening.
County Road. Do you people all sitting there know the meaning of conjecture? I would like an answer.
Yes.
I'm hearing lots of conjecture as far as bonds, plans, guarantees. $3 million is a lot of money. And I just don't hear any guarantees. Show me the money. You know, it's an old line from a movie, but it makes a lot of sense. And, you know, with several questions that have been posed, there were a lot of non-answers. I feel that we're really rushing for $3 million.
Thank you, sir. Questions? Anyone have questions?
An answer. Do you know what conjecture is? Do you know
I think
what
you,
mean?
I believe you heard from the,
We understand the word conjecture. My opening remarks started addressing that exact point. We don't have the answers, all the answers to what this is going to be, what it's going to look like. But we are confident that it'll be something that will create intrinsic value for the members of our community, just like our forefathers did when they bought Jacobs Beach, or they bought the property across from Lake Quantipoc, or they bought the property where the high school is. That was conjecture as well. You couldn't tell people what it was going to cost, what it was used for, but the forefathers decided there were investments that needed to be made in this community to ensure the long-term integrity and benefit to the community.
One last question. Many people have mentioned Jacob's Beach. Many people have mentioned Jacob's Beach. Last question. Why hasn't the deplorable and dangerous situation on our beautiful beach fixed with low tide?
I don't know who to give that to. I don't know who to give that to. All right, next question. I don't know what that
We would have to agree with your conjecture to answer that question.
Oh, I'm so happy you asked me that.
I didn't ask you.
I had Rick Maynard meet me down at the beach, and I the deplorable conditions. It's dangerous, mucky rocks, etc., etc. His answer was one of why don't you do like I do and wear water shoes.
So we're
With
asking
the taxes we pay in this town and the beauty of that beach, fix low tide. It's a fraction of $3 million.
So we're asking, thank you, sir. We're asking questions.
Related to this purchase.
So we're asking questions related to the purchase of the Moorings property. So, questions, sir?
2 questions.
Fire away. Name and address.
First question.
Name and address, please, sir.
Name is Sid Gale, Gale. 250 Flag Marsh Road.
Thank you.
First question, has this transaction been considered as a one-off, or has it been considered within the context of a town policy for dealing with all such properties coming before it under similar circumstances over the foreseeable future, so that we can assure that an equitable process is being followed consistently?
Yes, Gary, I can give it to you in a minute. The Land Acquisition Committee has a target list of properties that they are keeping an eye on, actively talking to property owners about, and when the appropriate opportunity comes up, that gives us a chance to move forward and do something. So the answer is yes. There are other properties that are under consideration, and you think you heard the Land Conservation and Development also talk about targeting properties like this.
Another question, Mr. Gale?
And a follow-up to that, can you tell me, without identifying them, how many properties are currently under consideration?
Gary, how many are on that list? Dozens. There are dozens of properties on that.
Pardon?
Dozens. Vice Chair,
Thank you. And the second question is,
That was the second question.
well,
This is the third.
that was 1B in response to your answer, if I may. Janice, can you give us the best information you have available, how long it will be before the intended acquired properties with this $3 million will be subject to fairly regular inundation from projected sea level rise?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but we do have, recommendations from the state. What is it? 20 inches and 2050, I believe. So 20 inches of sea level rise until 2050 is what the state has adopted as the metric to be considered, in addition to, that's on a daily basis, not storm events.
And that will do what to this property?
It would probably inundate most of the property if we go to 20 inches.
Thank you very much.
And questions?
My question is, do I have to preface my comments with a question?
It's better if you ask the question, that way we're getting information for the folks out here.
Other people were making comments.
I know, I try my best to give everybody a chance. I know, it's my fault. If there's a question, though, for someone behind you, any questions? Any more questions? Any more questions? There's a gentleman in the back. Oh.
Question?
Good evening, sir. Your name and address and the question, please.
Okay, name and address. The name is John Jagelski, Round Hill Road. I'm actually going to address the audience as well as the board. Do you folks believe in capitalism?
Well, it's a question it's a question on the project.
Okay, well, the question is why should a town be bailing out private enterprise when it fails? We have a situation where a gentleman purchased a restaurant, it failed, he doesn't want to put any more money into it, but he wants us to bail him out by buying his property.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Now, let me give you another situation.
Sir, I think it's more in the order of it's more in the sense of a comment.
Bay. I saw what private enterprise did to the shoreline of Chesapeake Bay. It killed it.
Yeah, sir,
I am not in favor of putting more private enterprise on this piece of property.
Now,
but why are we bailing out this gentleman when...
Do you have a question? Very simple. Do you have a question, and I appreciate your observation or comment. Do you have a question for us?
I did. Why are we bailing out this gentleman when his business failed?
I understand there's an offer on the table besides the town and a little bit more money. That's what I heard earlier this evening.
That's conjecture.
But, no, I don't think it's conjecture. It's not, but okay. If there's a question about, from the town planner, those folks, that's the question part. Otherwise, there's a nice person standing right behind you.
I
looking
did
for
ask a
something.
question. I have not received an answer.
I think it's a comment, and you can say that for comments. I'll be happy to
I
hear the
didn't,
comment.
it was not a comment. It
All
was a
right.
question.
If we could have the next speaker, please.
Are
If we
you
could have the next
ignoring
speaker.
my question?
I'm not ignoring it. It's unanswerable. Could I have the next speaker, please? There's a motion on the floor to close questions. I hear a motion on the floor to close questions. Is there a second? I hear a second. All in favor of closing comments? All opposed closing comments? Comments are closed. And I said comments, I meant questions. So questions are closed and comments, you've been very patient. Name and address, please. And I would ask, just for this, 1 second. I'd ask if we could stick to 2 minutes on this, because we all have a lot of things to say and I know a lot of people want to talk. Please.
My name is Julie Schlessel, and I live on Stepstone Hill Road. I commend, well, it's going to be a little disjointed because I had to X out stuff to keep to my, and not repeat things. I commend the town for their quick action with its letter of intent to acquire this waterfront property for the citizens of Guilford and its future generations. The vision Matt Hoey and the Board of Selectmen have is the right one. We can't afford not to buy it. We need to preserve the coastline for the public. Land with water views and access is scarce. The majority of the waterfront property is privately owned. We appreciate the town's commitment to preserve and improve public spaces, and I look forward to engaging in discussions about the future use of the property. And I want to tell, this is important, let's see, it concerns me what happened in Stony Creek will happen here. It was an Indian Beach Club on the water in Brantford that came on the market. And why am I going to Double Beach? But all right, the town wouldn't buy it. An architect bought the property and built his mansion, blocking all views and access to that area of the water, depriving the public of enjoying the precious shoreline. What a shame for the lack of vision by the town at the time. Don't make the wrong choice for our future. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Future generations depend on our decision tonight.
Thank you.
Double Beach was also sold to Edward Corporation, who decided to move elsewhere, and now it's hospice and it's not on the tax rolls. And I'm looking forward to a scenic walkway to Jacobs Beach.
2 minutes,
and,
please.
Has it been 2 minutes? I just have one idea for the property. I would like to see outdoor fitness equipment set up for adults and seniors.
Thank you. 2 minutes. Thank you. Next comment, please.
Thank you. Robert Berkowitz, 27 Long Hill Farm. When I think about the value economics of the acquisition of a privately owned piece of choice real estate for a waterfront park for all residents of our community to enjoy, I think of our town green, one of the most enviable in all New England. It generates not a penny of direct revenues to our town coffers. All it does is show up as an expense on the town's income statement due to the need to care for it. In short, it is untaxable property and provides no direct and immediate tax relief. Yet, our town green is of priceless and immeasurable value. It is a gathering place. It is a gathering place of solemnity where we remember those who have given their service and lives to protect us over the centuries. A place of joy where we collectively celebrate holidays, walk our animal companions, and spontaneously chat with or simply gesture a smile at our neighbors, whatever their political stripes are. A place where we break from the increasing solitude of our everyday lives, and a place that we should fully feel really good about bequeathing to future generations for their joy and happiness, just as our town forebears bequeathed it to us in the same spirit. Our town green makes Guilford not just a place to live, but a living and enduring community
knits together our past, present, and future. And there is an economic and tax benefit not to be taken lightly. By making Guilford a coveted place to live and shop, it enhances our home values, the livelihood of our town merchants, and thereby our tax base over the long term. In that spirit, acquiring a piece of privately owned real estate to create a small waterfront community park accessible to all our residents, a harbor, so to speak, a green harbor, so to speak, to enjoy the pleasures of our jewels of the harbor.
It's 2 minutes, sir.
Make not only common sense, but very sound economic sense.
That's 2 minutes, sir. Thank you. Good evening. Name, address, and 2 minutes. Thank you.
I'll certainly do that. Larry Rizzo, 24 Long Hill Farm, and I welcome you to give me the hook if I ran along. So, what I've heard is an acknowledgement that climate change is real, sea rise, the sea is rising. There's a reason we had to move the red shack. There's a reason Seaside Avenue houses are being put up on stilts. Those are wealthy properties that cost a lot. But how about those of us that live across the street and up to the train tracks? We're going to have increased flood insurance prices, property values will decrease, and that's why the state regards climate resilience as an important thing. On Monday, this coming Monday, they're debating Senate Bill 9. The low number is indicative of the high priority of this bill. It is to create resiliency zones. This project would fit right in with that project. It would be another source of funding. I just want to emphasize that building resiliency along the shoreline, it's a nice side benefit to have a park, but building resiliency is important for maintaining property values and the premise of that grant. The premise of that grant is that property values will decrease, but to preserve the property values. This is the goal of that. That is the goal of this resiliency.
Thank you.
Good luck. Is it working?
You're on. And name and address again, please.
Sheila Walston, North Street. Matt Hoey, I have a question for you.
Well, that part ended. You can ask a comment. Go right ahead. Make a comment, please.
Okay, comment. It was just said that we purchased Jacobs Beach. We did not purchase Jacobs Beach. It was donated to the town of Guilford. I was there when it was signed over.
Sir, name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Rick Nader, 21 South News Street. I was in Park Street. So I'm a little bit biased. I like parks. And, you know, I know that you said that the loss of tax dollars is about $18,000. Interestingly, I talked to Pam Geary, my successor today, who's doing a great job, by the way. Yeah, come on, Pam. And if you're going to put a picket pavilion, for example, the revenue from the $2 million at Jacobs Beach last year was $18,000. So there's a trade-off there. I would suggest maybe considering boat racks. We're racked out at Jacobs Beach. There's no more room for any racks down there. When I started in 1991, we had 30, 50 racks maybe, and now there's over 250. And there's no room for any more. And I want to just leave you with this. When I first started here, I brought my father down from Rocky Hill. I brought him to Chapman's Island Park. His comment was, what amazing foresight previous administrations had to buy this gem of property for the community. You can say that about Vineyard Park. You can say that about Long Hill Park, Nut Plains Park, every park we have. Look at the use they're getting. And nobody would have foreseen the kind of use that they get. And I think this would be an amazing asset
Sir, name and address, please.
My name is John Petrata.
I recognize you. I recognize the resemblance.
73 Meadow Street. And I'm also serving on the Guilford Board of Finance. And I'll try to be brief. I'll just say that after a meeting like this, I usually like to go to the Moorings and have some Prince Edward Island mussels. But I will say that I'm concerned about this, even though I think Guilford can be smart and use taxpayer dollars in a clever way to get some open space. I don't think this is the right purchase for Guilford. I don't think the town is going to get enough access and benefit from the property that can be offered by a commercial option. When I moved to Guilford, I thought this was one of the most beautiful places, and I don't think I moved to Guilford for food trucks or a couple of extra picnic benches, and I think that we can do a little better than this. And I'm also concerned that we're offering $3 million for a property that's appraised at $972,000.
Thank you. Good evening. Name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Joanna Baymiller, 75 Long Hill Farm. I've been in Guilford for 20 years. So I've noted that approval for this purchase has come from the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, Planning and Zoning, the Guilford Land Acquisition Committee, the Guilford Preservation Alliance, the Rotary Club, the Economic Development Commission, and they're tough. Senator Christine Cohen, Representative Moira Rader, Representative Rosa DeLauro, all in support of it. I think the 22,000 people who live here are the beneficiaries of sound planning and strategic thinking and good governance on the part of these elected, appointed, and volunteer staffed people. And we should heed their endorsement. Personal note about the condos. I shudder at the idea of multi-million-dollar condos bought as trophy properties by people who don't even live here most of the time because they have homes in Florida. And they won't volunteer at the library, and you won't see them at community meetings, and they don't contribute. And I resent that. My final comment is channeling Humphrey Bogart, for those of you old enough to remember him. The comment was made in another context, but here's what it was. If you don't do this, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday, and for the rest of your life.
Sir, that's a tough act to follow, but your name and address, please.
Well, I'm sure that most people in this room aren't going to appreciate what I have to say. My name is George Spencer. I live at 872 Nut Plains Road. I've been a lifelong resident of this community, and my family's been here for over 340 years, and I see this as the most irresponsible economic proposal in the history of this community. Now, I know everybody thinks that we need to have...
No, let's get this gentleman has the floor. Please, sir, go ahead.
The town of Guilford currently owns over a half dozen direct waterfront properties. Chittenden Park, Chaffinch Island, Jacobs Beach. We own the beach on Trolley Road. We own the beach on Neck Road. And we own Shell Beach. Most of these properties are actively used. Shell Beach, Trolley Road, and the one on Neck Road is barely ever used by anyone.
Now, this gentleman has the floor, please.
It is irresponsible to spend $3 million on a piece of property that, as we know from pictures and descriptions by the people in front of us, that floods. What are we going to do with a piece of property when it's underwater and it's already been developed on with pavilions, picnic tables, and so on and so forth, of which none of you have given a concrete description of what will go on this property. There's no, it's all, well, maybe we'll put this, maybe we'll put that. You don't know. Did I lose? How does this fiscally respond? 3, it's only worth what somebody is willing to pay. And I guarantee you, as of right now, there is no one, absolutely no one, willing to spend that kind of money. I spoke with Steve Press, who's the real estate agent, and he says there are no current offers on the property.
Thank you,
If there is, I'd like to see it.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. And that's, your 2 minutes is up, sir. I would just ask the crowd, please, if we could. It's getting late. It's hot. We're tired. We're uncomfortable. I heard somebody want to mention about closing. Not you, Mr. Spencer. About closing comments. There's only a few folks left. I'd like to hold off on that motion so these people can please talk. And just bear with us for a little while longer. Sir, please.
Sid Gale, 250 Flag Marsh Road. I'd like to offer a different perspective on what's before us. The transaction which is being presented is done in the name of bringing people closer to the water. But that's really not why we're here tonight. The reason we're here tonight is because the water is coming closer to the people and it's taken its first victim. And it is the first victim of many more that will follow. I understand many of the aspirations that support the vote for this proposal. But when you consider in the longer term, the many challenges that this town as a shoreline community is going to have to face, to deal with, to fund, I find it difficult to support this proposal for what it will buy for a relatively short term compared to other demands that will be presenting themselves to us in the coming years and possibly much sooner than we'd like to face. So it's with regret that I will be voting against this proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Gale.
Rob Federici, 230 Village Pond Road. If the town does move forward with the project in a way that incorporates food trucks, I just want to recommend that maybe we can install some of the like the power stations, like we have at Long Wharf in New Haven. So I think it'd be a shame to go through all of this, and then have like the noise pollution of a bunch of generators, so we're ruin the space. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Name and address, sir.
Fred, why don't we try and give them that mic?
My name is Dave Holman. I live at 6 Sparrow Bush Lane. Can you hear me? Hi, everybody. My name is Dave Holman. I live at 6 Sparrow Bush Lane. So why am I here? The short answer is because my wife and I are getting crushed by sky-high Guilford property taxes. Let me ask all of you the same question. How many of you are getting crushed by our sky-high Guilford property taxes? How many of you are fed up with the unnecessary out-of-control spending by our Guilford town leadership? How many of you feel disrespected and ignored by our town officials? Tonight, we can begin the process of returning our town of Guilford to fiscal sanity by rejecting this unnecessary purchase of the Guilford Mooring property for $3 million, plus whatever the additional cost will be to demolish the building, cart the wreckage away, reconstruct the property, and satisfy the unknown engineering and environmental requirements to convert this property. Tonight, we can deliver a clear message to our Guilford leadership that we are hurting financially, we are overtaxed, and their out-of-control, unnecessary spending must end. There is nothing certain about this purchase. Matt Hoey said more conversations need to be had with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, on what can be done since they have jurisdiction over the property from a floodplain and flood control perspective. In other words, we don't know anything about this purchase, but trust us. We've been down this trust road before. In the recent past, the town of Guilford bought the property next to the community center with the intent of demolishing it for additional parking, only to find out that it was a historical building and could not be demolished. Same story with the property at the south end of Lake Quanapug. Why are we even having this special town meeting to vote on the proposed purchase of that property?
10
When it
seconds,
could have
Mr. Holman.
easily been included as a bonding issue in the upcoming referendum on April 8th, less than 5 weeks from now. Only by including this $3 million purchase as a bonding referendum question on the Guilford budget referendum would this proposed purchase be fairly evaluated in conjunction in light of all the other funding requests that our Guilford leadership will be asking the Guilford taxpayers to pay for.
You're over 2 minutes,
upcoming budget.
Mr. Holman.
These other funding requests include $30 million for a new public works building, $6.5 million to renovate the police facility, a 4.66% increase in the Guilford town operating budget, and a 5.5% increase in the Guilford education budget. And who knows what else?
You're 3 minutes.
Funding requests.
Mr. Holman, you're 3 minutes presently. You're 3 minutes into your talk. So, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Holman. So, name and address in 2 minutes maybe on comments.
I'm making a motion to close the public comment.
All right, I'd like to present a more modern view of someone who is environmentally thoughtful, but also does not have access to endless funds. I'm not inherently against preservation, government spending, or preserving land for the people, and more importantly, for the environment. However, you're asking taxpayers to make a decision about a huge financial burden, not just today in the $3 million bond that you asked for, but also in an unknown future for this property that will surely be millions of dollars to develop in a climate-friendly way. Just like everyone who has an anecdote about times and places where opportunities were missed to secure access, there are also places we forget where poor planning and false promises from town officials have also closed off beach access and climate and have affected climate, like West Haven, where eminent domain and concepts of a plan by town officials left waterfront property undeveloped and no access, right? There's no room for false promises and empty plans, but I'm happy to come together with more details to make informed decisions for our combined healthy and happy future.
Thank you. There is a motion, I've had a motion presented on the floor to close comments. So under our parliamentary rules, we have to take a vote on whether we suspend commentary. I'll ask for a second to the motion to close comments. All those in favor of closing comments say aye. All those opposed to closing comments say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Comments are closed. So with that, the question. So with that, given the hour, I'll call for a voice vote with respect to the motion on the floor to permit the town to purchase the property known as 505 Whitfield Street, better known as the Mooring property. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion carries. May I just thank everyone for coming out. May I have a motion to close the town meeting? Second. All in favor? Thank you all.
Hey, I think you're the guy to help me load my safe.